So let's talk cutting out our subject. Now, some people like to go to these events and they like to place their own backgrounds, even when they're out on location, which I find a bit difficult to get my head around because I think I'd much prefer to do it in a studio than an outside environment. But either way, I'm going to show you how to do this. So I've got Caitlin model here, which I shot at Guy's Cliff, and I love the image, but I think we're just going to put a woodland view behind her. So I'm going to show you how we create a composite out of a location shoot environmental portrait. So here you can see I've already done it here, so I'm going to just talk you through the process. Now, I think it's always good to mask off of a whole image, because if there's bits that are missing, you can paint them back in or paint them back out. But if you take a selection from your original image, you're only going to have that cutout that you've got, and it's going to be on an onion skin, and there's going to be nothing to paint back in and out. So I'm going to go through those two processes just to prove my point. So if we come down our toolbar at the side here and right click, we can grab our object selection tool. And basically we're going to just click on it and it's going to find the objects that we want to cut out. So if I hold my shift key down, it's going to add all the parts to it that we want. And any parts that it's missed. So again, if we come back over here and grab our quick selection tool and just plus it, there's going to be certain areas that we want to bring back. Now this is really rough because I'm going to be really rough and just show you there might be certain bits that we miss. So let's come to our minus. We want to come in here. So we want to get rid of that. We want to get rid of that in there. There's a little bit here, and there's a little bit in here we want to get rid of too. So now we've got our selection. Now if I command J to put this selection onto a layer, so command J, and let's turn everything off. As you can see on an onion skin, let's add a mask to that. Let's come in and have a look at our selection. So you can see there's certain bits here that it's not actually selected. So if we wanted to brush these in or out on a black brush to brush away, you can see it will brush it away. But now if we want to brush any parts back in, we're not going to be able to. So if you actually make a wrong move here, you can see I'm not going to be able to paint any of that back in, and that's purely because, now if we come up to fit on screen, that's purely because we haven't got any of the background to paint in and out. So you can paint away, but you can't paint it back in because obviously we haven't got those pixels to paint back in. So what we need to do is to make sure that we're using the whole image. So let's copy the background, Command J. So now we have all of the background there that we need if we're going to paint in and out, if we miss certain things of the object selection tool, if it doesn't get everything. So again, let's come up to our object selection tool this time, and let's just hold our shift key down and see what we can get on our object selection tool. That's done a pretty good job. So let's come up to our quick selection tool now and grab our tree because I want to keep the tree in it. So just a quick selection. This bit here. And let's go to minus. So let's get that bit there. Let's get this bit here. And let's get this bit here. Now there are little bits missing in here, which we're going to need to paint back. So let's just add a mask now. Now you can see it's got the dancing ants all around it. It's selected. So let's just add a mask to that now. Let's turn off the background layer. So now let's get rid of these so we're not confused. So if I hold shift down and get rid of them. So now you can see that we've masked the area off that's black, which is now our onion skin. And you can see we've still got all of our image underneath. So we've still got all of those pixels, which means we can now paint in and paint out. So if we come down here and see this element here, and we want to paint it out on a black brush on our mask. Let's make sure we're on a mask, on a black brush. Now you can see it's going to... But because we've got a layer underneath, now we can actually paint in and out. Now, would this be as jagged as it is this corset? I don't think it would be. So I think I'd want to just try and straighten some of that up a little bit. Because I don't think it would look as jagged as that. So now if we're seeing background underneath, we can just brush them away rather than brushing them in. Let's make the brush a little bit bigger. So again, this is learning to finesse our cutouts, because we want them looking as good as we can. So you can see here we've got some of the background in there. It's done a pretty good job on the hair and the feathers and stuff. So it does have a line here. So we can refine it. We can go in and refine the mask. Or we can just use a brush and refine it ourselves. Let's start from the bottom and onto our mask on a white brush, and we're going to have to, on a white brush, so we're going to have to paint parts of this back in and parts of it out. And I think, to be honest, I mean, once you've done your initial cutout, which is pretty fast, it's just finessing those cutouts. So just painting bits of it back in. Like these little bits. Okay, let's have a look at that. Get on screen. So that looks better. Let's just have a look at that nose on that hat, because we did have a red line there. So let's just soften that a bit. So I'm just taking a brush and going near it and just softening it, blending it a little bit more. That looks better. Just obviously check all your lines, just make sure they look okay. And there we go. I think that's a pretty good cutout now. So once we double click on our mask, it will bring us up with this menu here. Now it gives us lots of different options here into actually refining. But what I'm just going to talk about today is just using the shift edge. We take shift edge up, you can see it starts bringing some of our pixels back so we can see a little bit more of our image. So what it's basically doing is taking the edge outwards, and now if we bring it down, it's going to do the complete opposite and take it inwards. So it's going to start cutting into our image and actually just give us a bit more of a blend. So down to about 40%, I think works great. So you can see now that it's really smooth around here, which works really well. And it's cut into the hat a little bit more. I mean, we have to be careful that it's not, you know, altering our image in any way, a bit like this here. But once we get back out into the mask, we can, so if we hit OK, now we can grab our pen. And obviously, because we've still got all the pixels underneath, we can make sure that we're just painting it back. So this way is just so non-destructive. It's such a non-destructive way of working, which is what we need in our work. We need to be able to go into it and paint in and out and basically just have a play, because that's what photography is all about, having a play and having fun and enjoying yourself. So obviously here we've got hair here. We've got stray hairs too. So we can either try and brush them out a bit like this. Let's have a look at that. Let's go on full screen and have a look and see how it looks. I think that would be okay, actually. But we can use the refine hair and try and just refine it a little bit with the tools there. But I think that's done a great job. So all of this just helps refine it, most definitely. So now I've added a couple of backgrounds together. Now what I've done is I've just dragged them in and put them in here just to give it a little bit more of an interest, because the background that we had, although we had a wonderful tree trunk there, the background was a little bland. So I've added these in here. So there was this one, which I love the ferns at the bottom, and this one that I just put them together. So there were two out of the same pack. I haven't uploaded these to the site yet, so I must do that actually, these woodland scenes, because they are pretty awesome. Now if we add Caitlin in, you can see there's a little bit here that I thought, oh my god, am I going to have to take that bit out? But actually when we overlaid Caitlin, it just sat there quite nice. Now I love the ferns. I think the ferns go really well with her colour and everything. So if we turn them all off and turn that on, we can see what it looked like originally, and now we can see what it looked like with something with a little bit more of an interest. So I think what I need to do now is just add in some light rays, because I've kept this so the light is here because the light was short lit, so it was over the other side, and I've shot shadow side, which has worked really well. But we can see here with the background, that's giving us what we've actually photographed in camera. So we have to be aware of this kind of thing when we're using backgrounds. But I do think it just gives it a bit of depth and a little bit more interest than what it had before. So I'm going to probably just go with this, I think. And I'm going to add some light rays in and just colour tone it and everything, and I think it will work great. I actually haven't done anything to this image yet. This is pretty much how I shot it in camera, and it looks pretty awesome. So yeah, I'm just going to finish this up, but the whole point was to show you how to cut out environmental portrait and add some backgrounds to it just to give it a bit more of a cinematic feel. And I do think this actually brings it to life a little bit. I can change the colours to suit the outfit and it works really great. So let's go with this. So here we are as the final image. So you can see that I've just added some more ferns here. So what I've done is I've just taken this bit at the bottom and cut out a couple of ferns and added them in the corner just to take the starkness of that trunk all the way down to the bottom, just to give it a little bit of finesse at the bottom. So what I did was, rather than cut them out, I just painted them out and then I blurred them slightly with Gazillion Blur just so they wasn't looking like pin sharp, because obviously my point of focus is on the eye, so the rest of them wouldn't be so sharp. And then I added some gradient maps, a couple of gradient maps for colour toning and a couple of actions. The fine art actions I used Warrior and Burnt Orange, I think, just to pull it together. With the vignette, again, what I did was I painted the vignette, painted it out where I wanted it, and I put these light rays here over the back just to pull that light in to where that light's hitting the back of her face, which I think just complements the image and makes it look a little bit more realistic. So I think I'm done with that. I'm quite happy with the image. So I'm going to just save it and export it as it is. So I hope you enjoyed this.